So it's been a couple weeks. Why don't we talk about the Orlando shooting at Pulse Nightclub in Orlando? It was the largest shooting of its kind in American history, with 50 dead, 49 victims, plus the assailant. And there's a lot of talk about what caused it, what the root causes were, and really it's self-hate. You can say, well, the guy was a Muslim. Yes, he was, but he wasn't a very good Muslim. He pledged allegiance to ISIS. Yeah, but ISIS had never heard of him, and now that they know that he was an active member of the gay community, they certainly don't want anything to do with him. His dad was Taliban. Right, back when we were supporting the Taliban to overthrow the Mujahideen, to fight the Russians by proxy, the Soviets at the time. I mean, none of that really has any bearing. All it comes down to is a crazy person with intense self-loathing and a culture of homophobia instilled in part by his parents, in part by parts of the American culture, even in the South. One guy in some comments had said, well, look at the culture he grew up in. And I said, well, America really isn't that bad. And another person pointed out, well, I don't think he meant America. I think he meant specifically Florida, and Florida does have a pretty messed up culture. So how did the Orlando shootings affect me personally? Because sometimes a crisis happens and it really hits you. This one didn't. It didn't hit me. It didn't hit me at all. It didn't hit me then. It hasn't hit me since. And it's because I'm numb to it. The shootings are constant. We can't talk about it because it's too soon. It's too soon to talk about it. But as Jon Stewart pointed out years ago, it's always too soon because these things never stop. I would love to be outraged, but there's nothing I can do. There's no law I can propose. There's no proposal on the books. Many Democrats have said, well, let's create X, Y, or Z new gun laws, and those would not have stopped this. Conservatives have come out and said, well, let's stop allowing Muslims to come to America or impose other draconian restrictions on brown religious communities. Those would have done nothing. There are no proposals to stop this. So if we're not going to stop this, and it happens all the time, that means this is the new normal. So I have two choices. I can either decide to be upset all the time, forever, for the rest of my life, or I can just get used to it. Like bombings in World War II, my aunt was in London. I guess it'd be my great aunt, Aunt Kay. God rest her soul, her terrible, evil soul. She was in London during the bombings of World War II, and when Pearl Harbor was attacked, they cheered. Not because they hate America, but because they knew the Japanese had awoken the sleeping giant. She knew a lot of people who died. She was young and reckless, and at night, when you weren't supposed to, she would go out with her friends to live just a little bit. And she knew a lot of people who died. And she could choose to let that haunt her every day, or she could just get used to it and accept, well, this is the new normal. And even though these were people she knew personally, she accepted it. So unless you've got a proposal that will actually curb the tide of incredible, unending violence brought about by guns, my capacity to internalize and get all twisted out of shape every time it happens is going to be necessarily limited. So, I don't know. I do recommend a small step in one direction or the other, any step, but no steps are being taken. So I just can't I just can't do anything about it, man.